I do think that addicts are incredibly special human beings.
Yeah.
I think that people that struggle with addiction are highly intelligent. I think that they are very sensitive individuals. I think they really deeply care about other people and connection.
Yeah.
And ultimately what they're looking for is a deep connection with spirit and with somebody else.
Yeah.
Wait on me, please wait on me. Live in our soul, ease my soul, don't wait on me. Live in our soul, so I say ease my soul till I say
One thing about opiates is that, you could take one pill every day for a year, but at some point along the line, you're going to need to take 2 pills to have the same effect. And then 3, and then 10. Well, I need something stronger than Vicodin, right? So you go to like a Norco or some other opiate, and then eventually it led to Oxycontin for me. I was driving in my car, and I remember saying to myself out in the car, like, this is just kind of who I am. This is who I'm meant to be. And like, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna die by the time I turn 40. I was trafficking drugs in from Mexico for personal use, right? I was doing anything I could to get my hands on it.
heart on my sleeve, pain on my dreams, on my life on my sleeves.
It was in that moment that there was something that spoke to me inside that said, you're capable of doing something incredible. Like, this is not who you are. You're capable of doing something great. That led me to drop everything, man. Drop the vices and really get on this path of clarity and self-improvement and sort of walking this line to find that greatest potential.
Well, dude, what's up, Darik? How's it going, man?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for being
Good.
on the show. Thanks for taking the time today.
No, it's a pleasure, man. I love what you're doing. I think it's the future of really like the evolution of podcasts. And from the first one that you showed me, I was like, dude, this is incredible. So
Thank you, bro.
I'm happy to be here, man. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have an incredible story. You're just an incredible dude. And
Thanks,
the reason why I started this show is because I'm fascinated by dreams. I'm fascinated by the fact that when we go to sleep, our bodies shut down, but our brains just turn on, right? And we have all these crazy wild dreams. And you would think it would end there, but when we wake up, the dreams just get more wild and crazy. But then there are people like yourself who are like, what if I turn that dream that's up here and I turn it into something real? And I'm fascinated by that, dude, because I'm a dreamer, you're a dreamer, and I just love connecting with people who have crazy dreams and they're making it happen. So real quick, man, tell us who you are. I'll just give kind of a running list. You're a mortgage lender, done over $500 million in closed deals, which is just absurd, numbers. Most people just dream of that. Black belt, you're a professional a magician. You were a surfer growing up. I mean, you're jacked, you're ripped. You just got the thing going in your life. But that's only pieces of who you are. So why don't you tell us 30,000 foot view, who is Darik Tolnay?
Well, and I think it's important that people understand that, those are the pieces of me that those are the pieces of me that outwardly people might see on social, right? Or people that have come into my life and come out. But often in between all of those milestones, there's been some really, really dark times as well. I do believe in visioning. I do believe in dreams. I don't think you can ever accomplish anything unless you imagine it, think of it, and envision it first. Does that make sense?
Totally.
I'm never gonna have the impact I wanna have unless I imagine perhaps speaking on stage or having the #1 podcast in the world or doing something that's going to give me what I want. Maybe it's the mansion, the beach house, right? The exotic car. but you're never going to have that if you don't first dream about it. So I think dreaming is super, super important. And as far as who I am, man, you know, I am pretty eccentric, you know. In fact, my wife even says to me, like, man, is there anything else I don't know about you? Because it's, and I'm not joking, like literally, you know, it's probably a couple times a month. She's like, what? You did that? You did that? Holy cow, what else have you done? And I think that's the way that I've always been. You know, I from an early age, I wanted to do something special. I believed I was capable of doing something special with my life. And, you know, and that all started with being able to fool people, right? Like doing magic. That was something I learned at a super young age, and just slowly but surely I got hired by people to do it. It became something where I was getting paid a lot of money to do it. You know, and then I was recruited into the mortgage business, and I got really, really good at that. And that's been the type of thing where, unless somebody's experienced this, it's really hard to describe, but the type of feeling you get when you know internally, deep inside, that I am fucking incredible at this. You know that to be true, not because you're stroking your own ego or you're trying to convince yourself you're good at it, but because you understand what your competition is doing. It's just a conviction that you're really good at it. So I'm fortunate that I found that passion early on, and I've been able to help thousands of people with the gift of home ownership. We've funded a lot of loans in multiple states, and so that's been great. But now it's time for me to evolve. You know, I don't want to be known as just Darik the mortgage guy, right? And now I have a family. It's really, how do I make a huge impact? How do I become a leader to my family, to my kids? And how do I really reach my fullest potential? How do I get to the point? And I don't know if I ever will. You know, I don't know if anybody that thinks like I do reaches the pinnacle where they say, that's it, I'm good. I just don't think it's in my blood. You know, my wife wishes it was. Like, dude, can't you just be, and it's not about not being grateful for what you have. You're grateful for what you have, but when your plate becomes full, it's, God, make my plate bigger.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Make my plate bigger because there's more that I want to do. And so I believe there's more out there for me to do, and right now is just the beginning of that. You know, so in a nutshell, that's me, man. I'm eccentric. I love business. I love making money. I love people. I love helping people grow and seeing a difference in their lives. I love changing people's lives, dude.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. I love how you said that you've summited a lot of mountain, and you're just always looking at that next peak. Like, what's that next mountain that I can summit? And that's like, I think that's what marks people that can achieve at high levels. Like they're content but never satisfied. It's like this, like, I almost call it holy. It's like this holy, like, dissatisfaction with, like, this can't just be it. Like, I've got more life to live. Let's freaking go.
Yeah.
You know, and like, and I love spending time with people like you, because like most of the world doesn't understand that. Most of the world's like, well, you have a family, you have a house, you have a car, you have a dream job, you're making money, you're doing all this. Like, isn't that enough? And you're like, it is enough, but it also isn't. It's this weird paradox of living in between.
Well, it's being happily dissatisfied, right?
Yeah.
It's being happily dissatisfied. And I think that if you ever get into the mindset or the frame of, well, I'm doing better than most, right? Well, shit, look, I've got the nice house and the nice car, and, you know, I've got some money in the bank, and I mean, look what I've built. I'm doing better than, you know, my friends from school or whatever.
Right.
That shit is poison.
Yep.
It's poison, because you're literally comparing yourself to somebody that's doing less than you.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of, really, it should, like, I feel inferior 90% of the time. Right? But it's because I'm choosing to put myself around people that are doing way more than me. right? They think differently. A lot of them think bigger. A lot of it's just a belief in how they think.
Yeah.
It's a confidence. It's a like I can do anything that I put my mind to and that I really focus on. I can accomplish that. So, I think never resting or being satisfied with who you are. I think you're constantly, at least I am, I'm constantly wanting to reinvent myself and become a better version of who I used to be.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And I love that, like, transformation is continuous. It doesn't just happen once. If it did, we would all just transform from baby, and we would probably transform once to toddler, and then that we would all be toddlers, right? Like, we change all throughout our lives. I mean, like, from our moment we're born to the moment we die, we're always changing. And so sorry, go ahead.
No, I think, again, I think that even though I have a philosophy of constant and never-ending improvement where I want to become better, I think it's sometimes people see that outwardly and they see these milestones, they see the ups typically, right? But oftentimes in between those milestones or in between those big transformations or changes, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of darkness. There is a lot that I don't think most people, if they know if they know that's what they're signing up for when they become an entrepreneur or they're trying to do something great, I think a lot of people wouldn't sign up for it.
Totally.
Right? Because, and it's a lot of it's intangible. A lot of it is just having mental toughness, being able to get through and being resourceful, right?
Yeah.
Like there have been plenty of times where I've had to be resourceful with money. You know, I think a lot of people would have quit and given up and just, hey, I'm going to go back to a job.
Yeah.
There's never been a plan B for me. There never will be, right? Like, and when your back is up against the wall, like I've always figured it out. That's one thing I know about me is I'm a fucking hustler, dude. Like I will always figure it out no matter what, no matter how bad it gets. And now I've got that frame of mind that no matter how bad it gets, I'm going to get through that shit.
Dude, that's amazing. I love that, dude. Well, I want to get a little bit deeper into your story. And one of the things we always ask when we have guests on the show is like, what's your drink of choice? Some people answer with something alcoholic. Some people are just like water. You told me that you don't drink alcohol anymore. So you elected for a sugar-free Red Bull. This is my drink of choice. We're not sponsored yet, but Spindrift, please sponsor us.
Okay.
But dude, I personally believe that our preferences and our choices are built out of experience and story and stuff we've gone through. So why Red Bull? Why a sugar-free Red Bull when you could have chosen anything in the world?
Well, if I'm being honest with sugar-free Red Bull, you know, I'm probably going to owe somebody on my team some money for drinking this when she sees it, because I tend to over-caffeinate, right? It's something I struggle with, honestly, is too much caffeine. But, and ironically, like I never used to drink this shit. So I think it's just... you know, I'm an addict, dude. By nature, I'm an addict. And so I tend to reach for something that's just going to give me an edge or make me feel a little bit different, right? And I think that it's probably a delusional belief, but there's something in me that has convinced me that I've got to be up and on like 100% of the time. If I'm not bringing energy, then what am I doing, right? And I don't think that that's real, but there's a charge I get from bringing energy into a room.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that seems to do it for me.
That makes sense. Like, it's interesting how and I don't know if these are good or bad behavioral things that we do. Everybody has something, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it's interesting how we all kind of know how we behave, and we all kind of know like, I know I do this. Should I keep doing it? Should I not? And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. But like, clearly, like Red Bull keeps you from other addictions, other vices, which is a part of like your story. And so I know your story of what you've kind of journeyed through and how you've kind of reformed yourself out of some pretty dark places. But I think a lot of our watchers would love to like hear about how you climbed out of what you climbed out of and how you climbed out of those dark pits that you were in.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I think that fortunately, more recently, addiction and mental health has become more tolerated. I still think it's taboo. I still think people are uncomfortable talking about it. I know a lot of light has been brought to it, especially with what happened with Purdue Pharma and the opioid crisis. But that's really how it started for me, man. I was in my late teens, early 20s. And I remember I just felt like I was having a panic attack, right? I didn't know what to do. I've never felt anything like that, but I was like, I couldn't breathe. My brain had convinced me that like, if I can't breathe, I'm gonna die. And so I called my mom at the time and said, you gotta take me to the hospital. She comes from work, she takes me to the doctor's office. It's this 80-year-old doctor, and he prescribes me at the time Klonopin, and he prescribes Paxil. Okay, Paxil's like an antidepressant. Klonopin is a benzodiazepine, which is like a Xanax or a Valium, something that is used for seizures. It's used to lower your anxiety and cause you to relax, right? And so, and at the time, I just felt like, well, he's the doctor. Like, there was none of this education that I had researched at the time. I mean, I'm in my early 20s. The doctor tells you to take something, I take it, right?
Yeah.
The second I took that Klonopin, I remember, man, this feeling of euphoria. I was just, panic attack's gone. I'm feeling great. I'm being driven back to my house. And that was probably a 2-year process of me staying on Klonopin and Paxil, increasing the dosage to have the same effect, until finally I was just at a point where I'm like, man, why am I even taking this shit anymore, right? It just sort of dawned on me. Why did it take 2 years? I don't know, but it took 2 years. It dawned on me, and really where I got scared is I ran out. I think I was like a day short for some reason, or maybe one of the days I took 2 because I was feeling something. And so I go to the pharmacy and they're like, look, we'll give you an emergency one, but like we can't just prematurely refill this thing. And leading up to that, I was like, I felt horrible. I didn't know what I was feeling, but I felt really bad. Again, I couldn't breathe. And it was clear that my body had become addicted physically and physiologically to this drug.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to feel that anymore. So then I started the process of weaning off of it over time and got off of that. But then a little later on, we talked about being in martial arts, and I was in gymnastics.
Yeah.
And so at a young age, I was doing a back handspring. If you're familiar with that, it's like the back flip, but you use your hands and then kick your feet over. So I was doing one of those, and my spotter missed the spot. And so I went back, but my hands gave way without the spotter, and I landed directly on my head, and it compressed my spine. You could hear it click all the way down, and I blacked out for, I don't know how long it was, probably not long, maybe 20, 30 seconds or something. So I was embarrassed by it. I didn't want to tell my parents about it. So I go to the doctor and they prescribe Vicodin, right? And for me, I know everybody tends to have an affinity to one thing or the other. I've always been very different with cocaine, for example. I hated that stuff because I would take it and it would make me really paranoid and I'd want to go to sleep. Now, most people take it because they want to go party, right? They want energy. It would have the opposite effect. Whereas with opiates, that gave me energy. It gave me perceived energy, perceived focus, clarity. I could work 24/7. I just felt unstoppable, dude, because it's numbing out not just the physical pain, but the mental pain, the mental pain. And so you have the ability to not let anything into your world other than what you actually care about and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So I fell into real deep addiction with that, man. It started with the doctor prescribing it to that's just not working anymore. One thing about opiates is that, you could take one pill every day for a year, but at some point along the line, you're going to need to take 2 pills to have the same effect. And then 3, and then 10. So for me, it got to a point where it was that evolution where I was taking more and more and more. Then it was like, well, I need something stronger than Vicodin, right? So you go to like a Norco or some other opiate, and then eventually it led to Oxycontin for me. And dude, I don't wish that drug on anybody because, at least for me, it was the type of thing where it was the most incredible feeling I've ever felt. And like, for anybody who's listening to this that's tried ecstasy, better than that. Like, the most euphoric feeling, but it has the same result where you eventually need to take two. So I got to a point where I was taking enough to easily kill myself. I could have easily killed an elephant too, right? Like I was taking, I was taking about 1,400 milligrams of Oxycontin a day.
Wow.
Okay. Now, this habit was costing me like $5,000 a day. So how do you sustain that?
Yeah.
So I was trafficking drugs in from Mexico for personal use, right? I was doing anything I could to get my hands on it. And I was going to the doctor because I had legitimate spinal cord injuries. So I was still getting it prescribed from the doctor, but then I could also take that pill bottle into Mexico, get them to sell me a bunch of it, carry it back in the bottle, and I had a legal prescription, right? It's just I went there with the empty bottle.
Yeah.
So, and then of course you're buying it on the black market. And then for me, it was just, I think the nature of addiction is obsession and compulsion. And it's more. Okay. Now, I do think that addicts are incredibly special human beings.
Yeah.
I think that people that struggle with addiction are highly intelligent. I think that they are very sensitive individuals. I think they really deeply care about other people and connection.
Yeah.
And ultimately what they're looking for is a deep connection with spirit and with somebody else.
Yeah.
And for me, because I was afraid of finding that connection or being intimate with somebody or vulnerable, I turned to what I knew can make me feel good, right? But there were some really dark times, man. I mean, there were times where I was, I was smoking heroin, I was snorting cocaine back and forth inside a room of my house all day long until I would basically fucking black out, and that would go on for days at a time. And nobody fucking knows this shit about me. But there was one day where it was like, just give me anything. Right? I had told myself, I'll never forget it. It was in Golden. I was driving in my car and I remember saying to myself out in the car, like, this is just kind of who I am. This is who I'm meant to be. And like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die by the time I turn 40. Like I had resigned to dying. Like this is, hey, some people have this addiction and some people don't, but I've got it. And like, this is my life, man. Yeah. And I'm going to fucking die. And I'd almost become okay with that. So then I was like, give me whatever you can give me. I ended up going down to the liquor store every morning, trying to drown out my sorrows and my pain and everything that I was struggling with. And where my life wasn't at the time. I was very selfish, extremely selfish. I think that like when you're depressed, you're really being selfish. All you're doing is thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Like go and pour into somebody else or pour into other people that need help. And very quickly you get out of self and you realize that when you're helping somebody else, that actually gives you an incredible feeling. But
totally. Yeah.
I was drowning it out, and I remember I'm curled up in a ball on my couch at 10 a.m. I'm fucking wasted drunk, drugs everywhere. And this is why I believe in God, dude, because it was in that moment that there was something that spoke to me inside that said, you're capable of doing something incredible. Like, this is not who you are. You're capable of doing something great. And when I heard that, I called a buddy of mine who I knew was in Narcotics Anonymous. I knew he'd been going to meetings. I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Right? I'd been to rehab. That shit didn't work. You know, I don't really think rehabs work. That's just my personal experience. And the reason I don't think they work is because oftentimes they're forced upon us from somebody else.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like, there's probably not that many people that are going, I need to sign myself into rehab.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I had an intervention. So then what happens is you go, but really you're not wanting to be there. It's not authentic from you wanting to change. So the day I got out, I relapsed, right? The day I got out, I ended up going and drinking, and then that led to more drugs. But this time was different, and that led me to drop everything, man. Drop the vices and really get on this path of clarity and self-improvement and sort of walking this line to find that greatest potential. And there have been times that I have relapsed, right? I haven't been perfect for the last 15 years, but the majority of my time has been, right? And it's just coming from a place of having a higher purpose now.
Yeah.
Once you identify what your higher purpose is, all of this other shit falls away because you're so consumed with that higher purpose that it just doesn't matter anymore. So,
Dude,
that's part of my story.
dude, that's incredible. And I love those. Whenever I hear about people who have transformed their lives from bleak and desolate places, like, there's always like that moment where it's like, it can't get any worse. Seemingly, it's like, here's death, you're knocking on its door, right?
For sure.
And it's like, and dude, this is like why I believe in God too, is because like every one of those stories, they only end one of two ways: death, or there's something that intervenes. I believe it's God. You believe it's God, but there's something that happens that just like rips them away from that brink, and then their life is totally changed in terms of trajectory and motive and opportunity. It's just dynamically different, and it's really cool to hear that. Every time I hear these stories of this, like that bleak moment, there's always just this supernatural tug out of that dark place. What though, like, even though there was that moment that kind of like woke you up and like shocked you into like the reality of who you could be, I'm sure there was a lot of climbing your way out of that dark pit. Like, what did you do mentally to train yourself, like beat yourself into submission to be able to get to like where you're at now and going?
Yeah, it's a good question. A couple things. I was fortunate to be able to stand on the shoulders of giants. I had a friend of mine that had been in this program for several years. And all I knew at the time is like, I didn't want to die anymore. And I didn't want to, like, I knew that using drugs wasn't the answer, right? Like, I knew that was never going to make anything better. No matter what my problem was, if I add drugs into it, it's not going to make that situation better. It's probably going to make it worse and set me back. And I might feel good for, a period of time, but then I'm just burying what the problem is, and maybe it becomes even bigger because of it, right?
Yeah.
But he was able to download like his recovery and kind of keep me super consistent just by being around these people that were living a different life, people that were not going out and partying on a Friday night, people that, didn't view alcohol as like the thing to do to let off steam or to relax or to feel better with friends.
Yeah.
Right? It was just a very different environment that I placed myself in. So I would say one, he made a huge impact. He really helped me a lot.
That's awesome.
The group I was around really, really helped. And then a big part of it was just, I noticed some of these individuals I had met were just like, it's like I'm meeting the Dalai Lama, right? Or I'm meeting Deepak Chopra or somebody that's extremely enlightened and spiritual. And I'm just, man, like, I want that.
Yeah.
I want that. And so fortunately, early on, the obsession and desire to use went away. Like, I lost that.
Wow.
And so, and that was within probably 6 months. I lost that desire to use. Wow. And so I would go to parties and there'd be alcohol and people would be like, isn't this hard for you? And it's like, no. I view, could be a pile of drugs, alcohol. I see it as an inanimate object at this point. And it just has no bearing on my life and it doesn't influence me.
Yeah.
But I would say the big thing that changed was the writing. I did a ton of writing, really identifying everything from my strengths, my weaknesses, my character defects, really looking at like the denial, like the amount of denial that I was in, really identifying spiritual principles and trying to live through honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, instead of living with obsession and compulsion and selfishness and self-centeredness. So the writing for me is what took it out of my head, put it onto a piece of paper, so then I could look at it and either realize the shit in my head was ridiculous and what the hell am I thinking, or it gave me something that I could really look at and think through, but I no longer had to ponder it and go in that endless circle in my head trying to figure it out, because I never could figure it out, right? Even though I think sometimes we pride ourselves on being intellectuals and we feel like we should be able to solve the problem. And if we go and ask for help, well, we're not a man because we should be able to figure that out. And asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Right.
And this is what this is how I kind of thought. And so being able to write and really look at myself and give myself an honest assessment and realize that I'm no better or worse than anybody else. I could be sitting here talking to somebody that's homeless and there could be a billionaire over here to my right, and neither one of them are better or worse than the other person. Some of them have strengths and weakness. They both have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the writing was really, really huge for me. And I think some people, intrinsically know that that's helpful. And we hear like, hey, journaling's helpful. But then a lot of times they don't do it. Right. It's almost like they know it will help, but they don't do it. When you do it, there's a power in that.
Yeah.
And the power is in removing it from yourself. And so it eliminates its power. And then being able to share that with somebody that you trust, that's the big one.
Yeah.
Being able to share, because as human beings, I think we all feel like I could never say that to anybody. If I told that to James or to my wife or to my husband, if I actually shared that, dude, they would want to divorce me, or they would no longer be my friend, or they would think I'm crazy. And that, dude, is bullshit. Right? Because we have all done things that we're not proud of. We have all done things that we have buried, that we've kept secret, that we're ashamed of.
Yeah.
But dude, that shame and that guilt buries us if we're not willing to be open about it and sort of live without a dark heart. If we're willing to live with a light heart where there's no secrets, we're only as sick as our secrets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you got no secrets, you're not a fucking sick person. But the more you hide, you'll notice those individuals that hide a lot, they're always sick, man.
Yeah.
They're always sick. They're either sick physically, they're sick in the head, they put themselves in situations that aren't healthy.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's because of what they're burying deep inside. So that was about a 4-year journey of like going through that almost on a daily basis. And then I met my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
My second wife.
Well, you told me about your favorite book, The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And fantastic book.
Yeah.
I pulled a quote real quick out of it because I just felt like this quote represents you.
Cool.
And represents just who you are as a person.
Okay.
And I want to talk about this quote real quick, but the quote is, Believe it can be done. When you believe something can be done, really believe, your mind will find ways to do it. Believing a solution paves the way to solution.
That's fantastic, dude. That's an awesome quote. So it's kind of like what I talked about a few minutes ago, right?
Yeah.
Is like really when you have belief and conviction in something. I'll give you an example. And I was actually just listening to something this morning by Jim Rohn. And he did this, it was a motivational video on believing that you're the best. Believing that you're the best. Nothing good comes from from believing that you're not the best.
Yeah.
Right? And that belief is what changes everything. But it's sometimes difficult because the mind wants to immediately protect and keep you safe and protected. And so the mind will jump in there and go, no, you couldn't do that, right? Like you're not capable of that.
Yeah.
But the subconscious is a really interesting thing. And like when you speak something into existence, it doesn't matter what you speak is, whether it's true or it's false. In either case, whether it's true or false, the subconscious mind will take it and start to run with it.
Yeah.
And give you more of that.
Yep.
Right? That's like a legitimate thing. So being able to tell yourself, and you'll see sales guys do this a lot. I mean, this is a ritual I had for many years where I'd be in the car. I felt like an idiot, but I would be driving to a meeting and I would say out loud, I am the best. I am the best. I am the best. I'm the best. I'm going to fucking knock this meeting out of the park. I'm the best. I'm the best lender in the state of Colorado. I'm the best. And it sounded weird saying it. Like even now it feels uncomfortable saying it. But there was a moment when you keep going with that where suddenly you're just like, I am the fucking best, dude. And you believe it on such a deep level that who cares that it took you a few times of saying it where you thought it was bullshit to get to a point where you actually finally believe I am the motherfucking best at what I do.
Yeah.
You know? And I think we have, as a society, kind of come to this place where it's almost like we're too accepting of mediocrity, right? It's like, oh, it's okay, Johnny. You know, you got 10th place. We'll give you a trophy anyway. And it's just sort of everyone's okay with, there's not really winning and losing anymore.
Right.
Like there used to be.
Right.
Right? It's like everybody wins.
Yeah.
And I don't think that teaches our kids anything great. I don't think it teaches them the value of competition.
Yeah.
You know, and but back to belief, dude. Yeah, that's an incredible quote, but it's hard sometimes. It's difficult sometimes to believe, especially when you've got a goal that seems so far out of reach.
Yeah, totally.
And this is why I'm big on visioning, right? Taking time every single week to sit by myself alone, looking at my vision board, really envisioning what it is that I'm wanting or going for, really thinking about it. And what I mean by that is if you're saying to yourself, hey, I want an exotic car, I want a Ferrari. Okay, it's not enough to just say, I want a Ferrari. You've got to look at it. You've got to see the exterior, what the paint job looks like, every crevice. When you open the door, how does it smell? What does the instrument cluster look like? How fast does it go?
Yeah.
How is it, is it a convertible or is it a hard top? Or, really taking in everything about this and experiencing the feeling of actually driving it. So when you're driving it, are both hands on the steering wheel? Do you have one window rolled down and one arm is on the windowsill there? Are you wearing a watch? Are you wearing a dress suit? Right? Is it just like this, short sleeve with a tattoo? And like really taking that in and feeling it, because law of attraction is not about what you say, it's about what you feel, and it's about your frequency. It's about your frequency. You have to experience it before you can ever have it. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Well, I think it's like Jim Rohn also said in another one of his books, he talked about some people win, some people lose.
Yeah.
There's no reason for either. It just happens, you know. But I do think that there's a lot of mindset. There's a lot of mentality that goes into the winning mentality of things. Like I just playing sports growing up, you can easily see how a mental erosion led to physical defeat.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
like how many people don't understand the power of their own mind, the power of their own intention, the power of their own, like you were saying, ideation or just conceptualization of what they want to be, visualization of who they want to be. Like, and that's why there's a lot of loss, you know, in the world. And like, so obviously you're in this metamorphosis kind of like season, like you're transforming even from where you previously were into this newfound person almost. I would almost say it's like you were always this person, but now you're like really fleshing it out. And you're starting you started a podcast, you started like really developing your personal brand, you started really just journeying into like the coaching and equipping other people realm of things. And the thing that kind of like I think of, the three words that I think of that it feels like you're just like really dialing these three things in are the mind, the body, and the spirit.
Yeah.
What are you doing for each of those three parts of you to hyper, like you just, when you set your mind to something, you achieve it at the highest level. Like I'm not just gonna do a martial art. I'm gonna be a black belt. I'm not gonna just do magic. I'm gonna be a professional. I'm not just gonna do loans. I'm gonna do 500 million plus in loans. Like you set your mind to something, you do it at an expert level. So what are you doing for your mind, your body, and your spirit in this season at an expert level that other people should be doing too?
Yeah. Well, I think you're most equipped really to help the person that you used to be. You're most qualified to help the person that you used to be.
Yeah.
So I look at who I used to be, and who I used to be was a disaster, right? And so there's a saying in Narcotics Anonymous, and it says, the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. Think about that without addiction. The value of one person helping another person develop their physique is without parallel.
Yeah.
So if I've got the physique that you want, or a physique that represents what you want, I can help you with that. Now, how do I stay in these lanes of mind, body, spirit? I think with mind, it's all about what you're consuming, what you're reading, what you're watching, who are the people that you're around. Really, you've got to reprogram yourself. You have to find new ways to frame things. I did a story this morning talking about it, how, I woke up at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I thought to myself, my alarm goes off at 5 typically. I thought to myself, oh, this is awesome. I got 4 hours more of sleep to go. So I went back to bed, and it felt like 2 minutes later, like the alarm's going off and I'm waking up. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
But now whenever I feel that feeling or that thought of being tired, immediately it triggers me to say, I'm full of energy and I feel powerful. I'm full of energy and I feel powerful.
Yeah.
I'm full of energy and I feel powerful. And oftentimes I gotta repeat it like that, just like saying I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, to really feel it.
Yeah.
The feeling is what matters, not just what you say. And so when it comes to the mind, it's small little daily habits that give me that feeling like I'm winning.
Yeah.
Right? So it's even like getting up when the alarm goes off and not hitting snooze a bunch of times. That's a win.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Being able to get out of the door and go to the gym, that is a win. Sometimes that's difficult, right? Just because you got to put on your clothes, you got to prep, you got to take your, whatever, coffee or pre-workout, or there's stuff to get together before you get out the door.
Yeah.
If you have kids, there's another component there.
Yeah.
And so but when you go and you tackle the gym, especially for me, it's the morning. If I can go and crush a workout in the morning, dude, like there's nothing I can't accomplish that day. I'm putting myself through something really difficult. So it's those small daily habits and disciplines that really I think, helped me elevate my mindset. When it comes to the physique, for me, I get bored. And so I'm always changing it up, right? Like I'll go from training for a marathon to only doing yoga every day for a few months to like zero cardio and hardcore weightlifting, right? Right now I'm in the weightlifting phase. Like I enjoy using the body as an experiment. I just enjoy it. I like to see what you're able to do when you alter somebody's diet and food intake coupled with exercise. And like, there's a reason that people that are in great shape usually are like proselytizing about, health and fitness.
Yeah.
It's because they know something that others don't know, which is when you get into that rhythm and you do something physically and all of a sudden you start to notice it in the mirror, you're like, damn, dude, like I'm looking good. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
And then for me, it was just always like, okay, but like, how do I become the best at that? Right? Like, what does that feel like?
Yeah.
And so I've always cared about going that extra mile to really see how far I can push myself, which, physically then affects the mindset.
Yeah.
And vice versa, right?
Yeah.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And then with spirit, it's a combination of things, it's praying, it's meditating, it's reading scripture sometimes it's reading the Stoics and great philosophy, but it's all of those things, it's being around people that have a spiritual essence to them that I admire and that I want to become like. And so I think, and I think you just couple those three things and, dude, you're unstoppable. Like when you're on point spiritually, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. Like it don't matter, dude.
Yeah.
Like you are connected with spirit.
Yeah.
And you add in an incredible physique and an incredible mindset that's unbreakable. Dude, you're unstoppable, man. You can do anything you want to do as long as you believe you can do it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, dude. So let's talk a little bit about dreams to close out today, and then I have one last question after this one.
Cool.
Father Alchemist. It's kind of this brand that you're building. First of all, tell us about it. What's the mountaintop that you're looking at? You're like, I'm gonna tackle that thing.
I feel almost. I don't feel ashamed to say this at all, but I don't want this to come off as arrogant or boastful. I think for me, I've always kept score with money. Okay, so that I'd be lying if I said that didn't play a part in it.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, that has taken a back seat because I've realized what my greater purpose is through this, right? But that greater purpose didn't come until I just started, right? I think I've shared with you before, like with the podcast, I had a different name for it originally. And it was like me searching for really what I felt was going to resonate with me. And so that changed. But once I got started, I was just doing it. That's when I just sort of had this aha moment where it was like, dude, I am here to not only become the greatest version of myself, but to help other people do the same.
Yeah.
Right? To help the successful entrepreneur reach their full potential by eliminating vices from their life.
Yeah, totally.
Because how many people out there, there's a lot of people out there, some of them we probably know about, they don't do a good job of hiding it.
Right.
Like we can tell that they've got issues, right? And then some people, you would never know it, but they're hiding it. And some of those people run successful businesses.
Yeah.
Some of them are high up in sales. Some of them are executives with companies but they're ashamed of it. And also if that got out, right, they might lose their job, or at least they think they will. So I'm just the guy here to say, look, like if that's you, I can help you.
Yeah.
I've been through it.
That's awesome.
Right? Like I can take you from that point of despair. And even if you don't have despair, even you might be going along knowing you've got this vice and not even realizing what it's doing to affect you. but it's affecting you and it's limiting your potential, and you're not seeing the results you could see if you were to eliminate it. And it doesn't have to be drugs. It could be anything that is a vice or addiction, right? So it could be pornography. It could be excess shopping and spending too much money. But the Father Alchemist really just came as a result of the father. I'm a father of two. I've got a boy and a girl, both toddlers now. And but also, to me, father represents kind of like a all-knowing, all-powerful, like I can see the world and all of its strengths and weaknesses, right? Like I can oversee the world as the father. And then the alchemist is somebody that just deals with transmutation and transformation. And, you know, the old school definition of alchemist is taking a base metal and turning it into gold, right? So if you think about that in its human form, it's taking somebody that's in their current state, and that doesn't have to be bad, but it could be, or it could be just neutral, but transforming them into the greatest version of themselves. So now it's to make a massive impact in other people's lives. I want to help transform 12 individuals to become millionaires. And I want to grow a company that's worth 100 million.
Love it, man. That's amazing. It's awesome. Okay, last question and we'll close.
Yeah.
If you could snap your fingers and something magical would happen in the world, anything, and it would happen overnight, what would happen?
God, that's a tough one. If I could snap my fingers and something magical would happen overnight, you know, perhaps the realization from every person on this planet that really, man, we are all connected. We're all just one. And like what I do affects you, affects him, and affects everybody else on the planet. And sort of instilling this belief in people that if I take my own personal responsibility, but everybody does that, the world would be a much better place, right? The world would be a much better place. And I don't know the answer to all of the politics and religious wars, but I think it all starts with self. It all starts with self-responsibility. And so I guess that's what I would do. I'd snap my fingers and have the magic genie come down and say, you're going to take responsibility now for everything. You're not going to blame anybody. You're not the victim. You control your own life. It happens because of you, not to you.
That's good, man. I love that. Yeah. Okay, so
all right,
let's close with this. How can people find you? Where can people follow you? Yeah, give yourself a shout out.
Yeah, so at the Father Alchemist on Instagram. That's probably the best place to find me now, at the Father Alchemist on Instagram. We'll be launching my website soon, so stay tuned for that. That'll be the Father Alchemist as well. Yeah, but I'm just here to help, regardless of what your situation is. You know, obviously my business is the mortgage business, and so I've been helping families for the last 20 years with their home loan needs. But really, it's elevating people to the next level. So if I could help with coaching or really helping you transform, that's what gives me the most joy now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for being on the show. I think you're going to help a lot of people, and I can't wait to see how your dreams just help other people's dreams come to fruition for themselves too. And dude, like you're gonna change the world, my friend. So
thanks, brother.
Thanks, dude. Thanks so much.
That was awesome.